Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Cork It podcast. My name is Kyle Schwieger, and I'm joined here by
Dante Ellison,
Nico Genovese,
and we're back in the old studio, and we're getting ready for another week. We've took a little hiatus, took a little couple weeks off, so you didn't hear anything from us because we had been transitioning, moving in, getting ready to start new content coming up, and so we've been getting all that set up for you guys this week. So now we're back. Been a little bit, right?
It's been a minute, yeah.
Been a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Dante, we haven't had you for a couple months, man.
Yeah.
It's good to finally get you back in here.
Good to be back.
Good summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of work, but
Lots of work. No.
Making that bank, though.
Making the bank, though.
yeah, trying to.
Yeah.
All right, so we got some topics we want to cover here. There's been a lot happening in the sports world in the last couple weeks, so we haven't been able to hit on it all. So we're going to go talk about just recent stuff right now. So real quick for around the league, we'll start here. The U.S. Open started today. You're seeing this. It's Monday, August 29th. U.S. Open started today. We've already had some great matchups so far. J.J. Wolf from Ohio State, he came out and upset the 16th seed. I'm going to butcher his name, but it's Batista in straight sets, 3 straight sets, 6-4, 6-4, 6-4. And Dante pulled up the stat. He had 14 aces in that match, which is crazy to see from, well, one, such a young guy coming in to the U.S. Open and then already coming out, beating a 16 seed in the first round, major upset, and, just dominating him like he did. That's pretty crazy. That'll be a fun storyline to follow throughout there. No Novak Djokovic due to the vaccine mandates, so that will be unfortunate that we won't get to see him play. But there's other big names. I mean, Andy Murray's in there, although he's unranked, which we just looked at. Kyrgios is in there. There's going to be some good matchups here as we get moved into this upcoming week of tennis action. And I don't know about you guys, but I love watching tennis at least. I've had a lot of fun following some of these storylines and looking at different matchups. And I don't know. It's something that's fun, and I like that it's being in the U.S. this year, so...
Yeah, my dad's a big tennis fan, but
Yeah.
I couldn't get on it. I'm not really a huge tennis watcher.
Well, I'm going to start putting it on in our dorm room this week, so you'll be able to watch it with me whenever you want. So,
Yeah.
And then let's shift away from tennis, and we're going to go to basketball real quick. So in the NBA, Pat Beverly got traded to the Lakers earlier this week. Nico, Lakers fan, let's talk about it.
Feeling pretty good about it. I mean, Pat Bev causes a lot of controversy in the NBA sometimes, but I think he's got that dog in him. He's a menace on defense, and I think he could bring a good spark to the Lakers team. I think he likes to win, he loves it, and he's ready to compete to help this Lakers team win.
So did you see? So when he got up at 4:30 in the morning to get on ESPN to start slandering CP3, he said in there that if he was on the Lakers, they would have won the championship. Do you think that happens now that Pat Bev is on the team?
I think it's a better chance. I mean, if you look at it, the teams Pat Bev has been on recently, they've done pretty well. Obviously they have other stars.
Right.
Pat Bev's not the sole reason, but Pat Bev has accepted a role that he's not going to be a star point guard on whatever team he's at, but he's going to do whatever he can to be a role player and do whatever he needs to do besides from scoring, because we know he's not a great scorer.
Mm-hmm.
But defense, playmaking, just hustle plays. And I'm not going to say Lakers for sure winning, but I think adding Pat Bev, I think it'll give us a better chance because, again, I think he brings that spark that a lot of guys like LeBron are going to like because, like LeBron, he wants guys that want to win, want to compete every day in practice, and I think it'll help us a lot.
So another big question mark that comes up now is you just added Pat Beverly to a team with Russell Westbrook, who they've known to have beef in the past. They've known to scrap at each other whenever they play each other. Do you think that causes issues? Do you think Russ is on the way out? What are you thinking?
I think it causes some issues, and in my personal opinion, I wanted Russ to stay in LA. I wanted to stay in LA. I think with the new coaching, and I think Bron and AD can stay healthy this year. I wanted to see what Russ can do in his second year in LA. He got too much slander last year for stuff that wasn't even his fault a lot of the times, and I wanted to see him have a bounce back year, but there was already talks of him being traded before the Pat Bev trade happened. So I feel like because him and Pat Bev don't really get along, I feel like that's just another excuse or a reason that Russ might ask for a trade or LA is just going to figure out that Russ and Pat Bev cannot be on the same team.
And here's my thing on that is that, well, one, if they are getting ready to trade Russ, it's going to be interesting to see what that package looks like, because I know that people are thinking the Pacers might have a package with Hield and Turner, and that would be a good move. Honestly, for the Lakers, that would be a good move.
I would really like that move.
However, I'm not sure exactly how that's going to play out. I've heard some people say they could do what the Rockets did with John Wall and basically just sit him out until they buy out his contract and let him go somewhere else. It should be interesting to see. Me personally, I would still like to see Russ on that roster. I don't think you have a true backup point guard if you get rid of Russ.
We don't.
And so it would be Pat Bev, and then as soon as Pat Bev hits the bench, who do you have?
You think Pat Bev would start over Russ?
Oh, no, I'm saying if Russ isn't there.
Oh, yeah.
I think Russ starts, and then you have Pat Bev come off the bench. But I don't think that – I think if you trade Russ, now your starting point guard is Patrick Beverly, which isn't normally a problem unless you don't have a good backup.
And that's what sucks, because I don't know how much of a point guard he was. He might have been more shooting guard, but with us getting rid of –
yeah, because D'Angelo could have been point guard for most of the time in Minnesota. He had 7 assists a game.
Yeah, but with us getting rid of Malik Monk, I just feel like we don't have another spark at guard if we get rid of Russ.
Well, that's the thing too, is people didn't realize Malik Monk was a huge part of the Lakers offense, and I think there's a big hole in scoring, which is why I want to see them go get Dennis Schroeder in free agency.
I would love Dennis Schroeder, and again, if we got rid of Russ, I would love Buddy Hield. But I think Buddy Hield, he's great on the 3-point line.
He's older than I remember. He's like 31, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. But I think he just still has the ability to just go get a bucket. I think that could be a scoring player, scoring spark.
29.
He's 29.
Okay.
And especially if we get Miles Turner in that package too, just a good younger center.
Well, they picked up Damian Jones in the offseason.
Like
He's a good young guy. They got Thomas Bryant, which if he's coming back off injury, because, I mean, the big thing that is they were expecting him to have a great year in Washington before he tore his ACL. So if he's coming back in, he'll be very solid for them. I think they'll have a nice little group there. Yeah. They got some guys in the offseason, but still they got to get some shooting around them.
They had to get some shooting, had to get some more pure scores.
Yeah, I agree with that. Other stuff in the NBA, KD is officially staying in Brooklyn after a long time of him asking out. And so a lot of people came on Twitter to criticize him for his holdout. A lot of free agents were like criticizing KD for his long holdout because it's affecting them getting signed and getting potential contracts. And for them, that took like a lot out of their, paychecks, and they could have been making money now and they could have been getting signed and could have been talking to like teams. So he got a lot of slander for that. The other big news thing in the NBA, Chet Holmgren hurt something in his foot, out for the season. And this is...
Sorry to hear about that.
Yes, it was tough. Do you mind shutting that door real quick?
Got it.
I'm going to cut this.
I got it.
You got it.
I just didn't think it would be that loud until people started walking through.
Yeah.
So it's about to get hot in here.
Told you we should have worn the beaters.
Yeah, the beaters for the podcast. So the other big thing in the NBA news, Chet Holmgren out for the season with a foot injury, and for me, that's a tough blow. I've been looking forward to this Thunder team all year, and this is a very, very tough blow to see. The interesting thing I keep seeing about this stuff is, one, I don't know the severity of the tear. I know that he has to get surgery, so he's out for the year. Two, I've been hearing mixed things about how long it takes to get back from this. Some people are saying, 4 to 6 weeks of healing and then he can start playing basketball. Some people are saying you can't even start playing contact stuff. You can't even start running until a full year after. Yeah. So I've been hearing a lot of mixed stuff on that. I mean, the Thunder consulted like 3 of the 5 best foot doctors in the country when like looking at this stuff. So that was something that was interesting that they brought in. The other thing that I've been hearing is that apparently he was running full in practice before it came out that he had torn it. So I don't know exactly.
So even after he heard it,
he heard it, they were like he was still participating in full like speed practices.
It might be something where the pain's not worse, but the injury could get worse.
Could get worse, even though the pain's not worse. Right, exactly. But that should be interesting. The Thunder not gonna have a good year, even like without Chet. It should be interesting. But now Now I'm about to push the propaganda for Jalen Williams all-rookie first team because he is going to be special and he's going to get some minutes. But I think this will also be interesting for OKC's standpoint. One, to allow for these other rookies that they picked later in the draft to get some minutes. Chet's going to spend a full year practicing in an NBA, like in an NBA organization, building himself up, lifting, eating on an NBA diet, doing all this stuff to get better. And I think that's going to help him. He's going to be going into his rookie year with a full year of NBA like stuff under his belt, like full year of NBA training. I mean, you saw like even before he got injured, he was playing against all these stars in like just practice runs in the gyms. He was playing against Jason Tatum. I heard he was playing against Joel Embiid. He was playing against all these big stars and like
LeBron.
like Trae Young. Well, yeah, LeBron in the pro-am, but you've been seeing a lot of him, and I feel like this is a minor step back, but I think he's going to bounce back from this pretty well, is my hope. But besides that, OKC's got a lot of young guys in this draft that they got that are going to get a lot of minutes this year. And then the other thing is we're going to see SGA continue to improve and see Josh Giddey continue to improve. So this team's may be out of the playoffs this year, and you can count them out this year, but next year is a whole different story, I feel like. And which sucks because this entire offseason I was like, the Thunder are making the playoffs. The Thunder are making the playoffs.
You were.
And now I feel like that dream's going to die.
I think they'll still, if everyone stays healthy, and I think the Thunder are one of those teams where they're just so well coached, and with how young they are, I think if they can stay in close games, because they're so young, they'll just run these older guys.
They can have a Grizzlies type season. I don't think they get the number one,
it could
number
be,
two
it could
seed,
be like that, though.
But I think it'll be like that,
especially
in the
if
sense,
Shea
like,
stays healthy.
if Shea stays healthy. We haven't seen a full year of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander since 2020 in the bubble, and I think if he's fully healthy, doing his thing, he scored like 26, 7, and 7. That's the type of player he is. He's a 26, 7, and 7 type player, night in and night out. And if he can stay healthy, the way that he doesn't really need help. I mean, like, he's such an iso ball player that, like, he'll be able to get his. Josh Giddey's going to fit well in that system next to him. I think Lou Dort's going to continue to improve scoring-wise. I mean, we saw his jump to, like, 17 points per game this year.
Yeah.
Like, he went into this league, he averaged 3 points a game, and then he averaged 8, and now he's averaging 17.
Shooting got a lot better,
like, his shooting got much better, his production went much higher, and his defense is still stellar. And then you're bringing in guys like Jalen Williams, who's just a dog. He's a great scorer. He's a great shooter. He can attack the basket well. He fits well with these other guards. And then the other thing is you're drafting guys like Ousmane Dieng with the high upside of his frame and his passing, but he's not all the way developed there yet because he's coming from overseas. His scoring's not all the way there yet. His shot's not consistent enough. But that's a guy that if you give him enough minutes in the NBA, like, he can continue to improve. The other Jalen Williams out of Arkansas, he's a good big man. They don't have a lot of big men on this roster, so he's going to get a lot of minutes. He's going to get a lot of time to work down low, work on his scoring, work on his rebounding. This is a young team. They got a lot to look forward to, but it is a bummer not going to be able to see Chet Holmgren at all this season. That is going to be tough. Anyways, the other thing with basketball, international play is going on. We've been seeing some of that. Big names like we just said, SGA, Giannis, and Jokic, all are going off for their respective countries. Jokic going off for Serbia, Giannis for Greece, and SGA for Canada. They're all having stellar times in the offseason. Luka's even doing super well in is it Slovenia?
Slovenia.
Yeah, he's doing really well as well. So that'll be something to watch for. Although the funny thing is I always get got by these like tweets. They'll tweet out like fake stat lines because you can't find stats anywhere.
Yeah.
So they'll tweet out, they're like, Giannis had 60 points, 25 rebounds, and I'm like, wow, Giannis is that guy. And then they come out and they're like, he had 30, like at most. And so that's a tough thing that we got to stay ready for. All right, so this is our last thing for Around the League, and we're gonna start transitioning over into some topics, and we'll get started. So football season is upon us. We saw this past weekend college football started with teams like Vanderbilt playing Hawaii, and there was a couple other matchups. And then this next weekend, we're going to see all the college football teams get a chance to play. And then the week after that, the NFL is going to start. So everything is picking up real quick. So what we want to do content-wise for that is we want to get some games in and out, college football and NFL, like games of the week, and we want to do some pick-ems. We want to talk about who's going to win each game. So for this week, we'll start with college football right now, and we'll talk a little bit about There's like 4 games that I picked out this week that I think will be fun ones to watch. 3 of them are all ranked teams against each other, and then one of them is a Big Ten matchup that I think will be close. And then we'll also go in. I want to dive into a little bit the ESPN or the college football on ESPN. They all released their Final Four lists, and I want to react to some of those because I know Desmond Howard had a outlandish pick for his national title game. So I think I want to dive into that. Another thing that we want to do each week is for NFL content, we want to come and talk about some fantasy football stuff because that's a huge part of NFL season is fantasy football, and we want to bring some of that. So we'll have some topics on that later. But let's go into this college football right now. First of all, super excited for this year. Being in Ohio is such a fun time for college football because you have Ohio State, you have Cincinnati, and then you have the MAC, which is not the highest level of college football that you can watch, but it might be some of the more fun college football that you can watch. There's a lot of potential brewings for an upset there. I mean, we saw last year Bowling Green upset like ranked Minnesota last year, like off of a pick 6 at the end. So there's always some fun matchups in the MAC, but having teams like OSU and Cincinnati, both of them being as good as they are this year, will be a lot of fun. So real quick, I just want to go in. We'll talk about these 4 games that are coming up. We'll talk about some of the teams that we think are going to win. And, yeah, let's do that. So first game that I want to pull up is Penn State versus Purdue. This is our only non-ranked game that I'm going to pick out of here. 8 o'clock game on Thursday, so it's coming up this Thursday.
Is it at Penn State?
It is at Purdue, and right now Penn State is 3.5-point favorites. So here's the thing is that these are both teams that are fantastic programs. Like they have a long, rich history of being solid. Purdue last year had a pretty good year. Penn State is always pretty solid. So going into that, it's at Purdue. PSU is 3.5-point favorites. What are you thinking?
I follow Barstool Penn State, and they were posting these standings and everything, and supposedly Purdue hasn't beaten them in almost 20 years. So I mean, Penn State always has a good team, so I feel like Penn State will win. I don't know about cover, but I feel like they'll win.
Yeah, I got Penn State. I just feel like Penn State always has a more solid team, even if they're not ranked or very low ranked teams. I feel like because of that, and what the stat Dante just said, that Purdue hasn't really beaten them in a while. I think Penn State's not going to let that streak die. So
I'm going to go contrary to your picks. I'm taking Purdue. I think it's in Purdue. Purdue had a very nice season last year. I mean, they went 8-4 in the regular season, won their bowl game against Tennessee. That was the thriller. That was the Music City Bowl. It was 48-45 in overtime. That was a great game. I think that they're still going to be riding off that very good season. They're going to have a decent year. I think Penn State had a bit of an underwhelming year last year. I didn't look at their most recent recruiting class or who they've got coming in, but they did have an underwhelming season last year. They finished 7-6. They lost their bowl game. And I think that Purdue's going to be coming off that high season in Purdue, opening weekend. It's a Thursday night game. I think Purdue's going to be ready for it. I think their fans are going to show out and show up, and I think that Purdue's going to have a lot of momentum going into this game, and I think I'm going to take Purdue in this one. If not Purdue, then I'm thinking that they'll cover. I think they'll cover. So that being said, that's our first matchup of the game. And the next 3 we've got, these are all ranked opponents. So some of them might be closer than others, but first let's go Oregon and Georgia. Georgia's coming in number 2 overall, and Oregon's coming in at number 11 overall. Let me pull up the spread real quick.
It says Georgia's number 3.
Georgia's number 3?
I think OSU's number 2.
Yeah.
OSU's number 2. Okay. I had that wrong then in my notes.
What's Oregon ranked?
11.
Oregon's 11. So the line is UGA by 17. And it's going to be Georgia. I feel like. I just feel like even though it's a ranked game like this, Georgia's going to steamroll them. Although Georgia did lose a lot of players to the NFL draft, I just feel like they're still going to have a very solid roster coming into this next year.
Yeah, I agree with that 17-point favorite. I think it's going to be more than 17 points, but I think Georgia's just going to blow over them.
I think Georgia's going to win, but I still don't think they're going to cover.
You don't think they'll cover 17?
17's a lot.
17 is a lot to cover, especially against a ranked team.
Yeah. And Oregon, they won their bowl game last year, I'm pretty sure. And I watched some of it like towards the end, and they didn't look too bad. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like some of the momentum from last season can come in, but Georgia's just too good. So, but I don't think they'll cover.
Okay, I want to throw one more game in here because I'm looking at the slate right now, and this one will actually be a pretty good game. So in Pitt's ranked number 17. A Thursday night game, 7 o'clock. They're playing West Virginia on ESPN. Pitt is 7.5-point favorites. What are you thinking, Dante? Because you're from Pittsburgh.
I'm a Pitt fan because it's my hometown, but Pitt lost a lot of good talent. They lost Kenny Pickett.
They lost their starting quarterback. So
they lost Jordan Addison there. He's insane. He went to USC, but I think Pitt will come out on a win, but West Virginia is going to make it a tough battle.
And West Virginia's got the new quarterback coming in from it was that viral clip that went it was that viral high school highlight that went crazy because they were down.
JT Daniels.
Yeah, weren't they down by 21 and they won the game with like a minute left, or was it down by 14?
I think.
I just remember they was like onside kick. He threw a touchdown, onside kick. He threw another touchdown, onside kick, and then he like ran it in. I thought they were down by 21 and they won it. It was like down by 21 with a minute left, and their quarterback like willed them to a victory after like 3 successful onside kick attempts. Nico Marchio was the name I was trying to think of, and they was down by 17 points in a comeback victory against Bishop Gorman High School. You can look that up on YouTube. It's just Nico Marchio versus Bishop Gorman, and it'll show you the comeback. The consensus starter is going to be JT Daniels, the transfer from Georgia, and he will line up under center for West Virginia in their game against Pitt. So I think West Virginia can pull this one out. I think it might be a bit of an upset. I think I don't think Pitt covers, even if West Virginia doesn't win. I don't think they beat them by more than 7. So that's going to be my pick for that.
Yeah,
I got West Virginia just because I feel like the loss of Kenny Pickett's going to be.
That is going to be a major hole to fill, especially because their quarterback did not, like their backup that came in for that bowl game against Michigan State, he didn't do all that much.
They got a transfer from USC.
Oh, is he going to be the starter?
Yeah, Keaton Slovis, I think. He came in, but yeah, they lost a lot of talent on the like receiving core and the defense, so
it should be interesting.
Yep.
And then the last one, number 2 versus number 5. We got Ohio State versus Notre Dame in Columbus, Saturday night at 7:30.
Ohio State's wiping them, dude.
The line is Ohio State by 17.5.
Ohio State's wiping them. I have never been, kind of like Cincy, I've never been fans of Notre Dame just because I feel like they don't play a lot of great competition. And when they do, you kind of see like they don't play their best football.
So here's my thing is that I find kind of crazy about this is that it's a 17.5 point differential for a 2 versus 5 game. Yeah. So like, why, if we really think that Notre Dame is not going to be able to stay within 17, why are they ranked number 5?
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, why was that the consensus that Notre Dame was going to be like the 5th best team in the country starting out if they aren't going to keep it somewhat close with the number 2? It would be the same with like if Ohio State played Alabama and Ohio State was like, if Alabama was like 20-point favorites on Ohio State, why would we be number 2? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Notre Dame just has all this hype around them all the time, but they never like live up to all their hype.
I feel like Ohio State wins. I'm not sure exactly if they'll cover, although CJ Stroud had an amazing year last year. He's my favorite for Heisman. I think that they'll win. I'm not sure if it'll be by 17, but I think they'll win.
I think it's in Notre Dame, right?
It's at Ohio State in Columbus.
Oh, at Ohio State.
Yeah, everyone keeps. I know so many people going, but like the tickets are like $400.
They're expensive.
They're like expensive. It's like the biggest thing of the year. The other thing about it too is they're bringing on like Jack Harlow to do the like special guest pick on ESPN, and I was like, you couldn't pick anyone like from Ohio to do that.
Yeah, I think Ohio State will take it. 17 points is a lot again, but if there's one team to do it, it's either Alabama or Ohio State.
I agree with that. I just wish they would have like brought LeBron on as the guest picker. Like that would have been more fun than watching Jack Harlow. Although I do like Jack Harlow. All right, so that's our college football little pick'ems real quick. And then let's go into this. Do you have this pulled up or should I send it to you guys, this ESPN list? I'll send it to you right now. So first of all, let's go through each one. There's some interesting one. Lee Corso has his Final Four, Alabama versus Utah and Georgia versus Ohio State, with Bama and Ohio State in the final and Ohio State winning it all. I like this list. I think Utah's an interesting pick. I definitely think they're the ones to come out of the Pac-12. I'm just not sure if there's going to be a stronger Big 12 team coming out that you would rather have them in, because they've got 2 SEC teams, a Big 10 team. So in my opinion, I would like to see the Pac-12 in there. However, I think that there's going to be a Big 12 team that they're going to bring in, whether that be whoever wins that. Although if there's not a clear-cut winner of that conference, then I think that's going to be Utah's chance to sneak in.
Yeah.
But I think Baylor out of the Pac-12 or out of the Big 12 would be good. It'll be interesting to see how Oklahoma does. Another team out of the Pac-12, I think USC is going to have a really good season, so it'll be interesting to see if they win out in the Pac-12. But Utah is going to still have a very solid roster because they put up a giant fight against Ohio State in the that was a tough game. Even though like Ohio State had like an incredible game, like that game was still pretty like back and forth. That one I kind of agree with. What are your thoughts on that one, Lee Corso's list?
I mean, I kind of agree with that. I was going to say, I like Herb Street's list. I think Baylor over Utah in that Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Utah is a very good team, but I don't think they'll have what it takes to really get pushed for that 4 spot.
And do you think Baylor's coming out of the Big 12? Because
I think they have a chance.
I think Baylor's got a pretty decent chance, and then either Oklahoma or Oklahoma State will have a good chance. I mean, Oklahoma State was an inch away from making the Final Four.
Yeah.
Like, if they would have won their bowl game, they were consensus making the Final Four.
Yeah.
But they were literally like an inch away from the goal line. So I think they will be interesting to watch, and I think Oklahoma will be interesting to watch, although the loss of Caleb Williams will be interesting. They've got like a question mark at QB right now. It's going to be someone that nobody's seen play big-time games, so it'll be very interesting to see. Yeah. But I think any 3 of those teams can have a chance to win. But if there's not a clear-cut winner, I wouldn't be surprised if a team from the Pac-12 came through. Mm-hmm. Dante, your thoughts on Lee's list?
Well, the 3 teams, Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, I agree with that. The Utah one, I don't really think personally, I don't think they'll make it. I mean, I think Clemson always has a good program.
Mm-hmm.
They always have a chance, but I haven't watched enough of the Big 12 teams to have a say on, like, Baylor, like you said. I don't really know their team, but I've watched a lot of ACC football because Pitt's in it, and every time we play Clemson, we get waxed. So I feel like Clemson, and they have DJ who's coming back for a year.
I'm not sold on DJ yet. I really am not. Like,
Really?
I don't think he's gonna be the Trevor Lawrence that they're looking for. Like, they're looking to replace Trevor Lawrence, and I just don't think it's gonna happen. Trevor Lawrence was one of the best college QBs of all time. I mean, you throw him up there with names like Joe Burrow and other. I mean, there's a long list of history of great college quarterbacks, but in recent history, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence are the big names that you see come out. And I just don't think that DJ is going to be that guy for them. And I think even though they'll probably win the ACC, I don't know if they're going to be – I mean, to make the Final Four, you have to win the ACC and have, like, 1 or 2 losses. And I don't know if they're going to cut out for that. So it'll be interesting. Although the ACC is pretty easy, so they could go undefeated.
Yeah.
That's what – so David Pollock's list, he had Clemson and Utah in it with Ohio State and Alabama as well. He has Ohio State and Alabama in his final – with Alabama winning it. So that's kind of what you said with Clemson and, you know, joining the mix, and Utah still up in there in that mix from the Pac-12. And then let's talk about Desmond Howard's list, because I think this is the most interesting list I've seen so far. So he's got Texas A&M, Baylor, Pitt, and Michigan. And so he's got Texas A&M versus Pitt. He's got A&M moving on, and he's got Baylor versus Michigan with Michigan moving on. And then he has A&M beating Michigan in the championship to win it all. Thoughts?
He had to be on something when he's saying this list, because I don't see how you cannot.
You don't hate it.
I don't see how you can't have Alabama, Ohio State, or Georgia, not even one of those teams, in your Final Four.
I guess he's banking on something getting shaken up, because this is a crazy list for a Final Four, in my opinion, because he's not even picking the best teams in those conferences. I mean, he's banking on, I guess, Alabama and Georgia at least having 1 loss each. And it would probably be 2 A&M. Or A&M would have to beat Alabama in the regular season and then beat Georgia in the SEC championship for this to happen. And then, I mean, I don't hate the A&M. I mean, A&M's good. A&M's going to be solid this year. That's not the part I dislike. I think Pitt in the Final Four is crazy.
Yeah.
I think that's nuts, because you have to win out. in the ACC and like
Yeah.
have a strong enough strength of schedule to go. Because they'll have to beat Clemson, right? That's a given. And then the other teams they'll have to beat like NC State, Wake Forest, Miami. Like those will be decent programs that right now are all ranked. I don't know how long they'll stay ranked, but right now those are teams that are all ranked. In addition, they'll also have to beat North Carolina, who's always solid. Like even though they're not ranked every year, they're always decently solid. So there's going to be a lot of games that'll be question marks for Pitt to win, especially if they have to go out and beat like West Virginia week 1.
Yeah.
And a game that's already a question mark. Baylor, I don't hate that pick. Michigan, in all honesty, really don't hate Michigan coming out of the Big Ten. I think that they are a very solid team. I mean, we saw them beat Ohio State last year, but I think Ohio State's not going to let that happen again. Like, I just can't see them losing 2 years in a row to Michigan, especially now that Stroud has had a year under his belt, Heisman favorite. I mean, they are going to come in with a bit of a weaker wide receiver room, but Jackson Smith and Najigba is going to be solid. They're still going to have young guys coming in that are going to be great additions in their wide receiver room. Me personally, I don't see Michigan winning it, but I don't hate that pick. I think my problem with this list is Pitt coming in from the ACC.
Yeah, I was going to, for Lee Corso's thing, I was going to say either Michigan or Clemson for the Utah, but yeah, I don't hate the Michigan pick.
The only reason I would say that I wouldn't see 2 Big Ten teams in is because if they're already doing 2 SEC teams, I don't think the Big Ten gets 2.
Yeah, no.
But if somehow Georgia or Alabama falls off, I could see the Big Ten getting 2. But it'll be very interesting. But it won't be Ohio State and Michigan because they will have to have faced off each other in the championship for them to even consider sending 2. So that'll be something interesting I see. But yeah, me personally, I think it'll be Ohio State. I actually do like the A&M pick. A&M's going to be very solid this year. Me personally, I think that USC has a great chance of winning the Pac-12 and then potentially making it. It'll just be interesting because they got a lot of transfers. They got Lincoln Riley. So it'll be interesting to see what they do out there. But I think they could be a team to win the Pac-12. But if they win it dominant enough, then I could see them sneaking in there. But it should be interesting, especially with all of the movement in conferences. I think that the Pac-12 having some winners is something to look forward to. All right, let's move NFL real quick. We've got a couple NFL topics we want to talk about. Mostly it's fantasy football because the NFL hasn't started yet. So I asked everyone to each bring a player that they want to. So here's the 3: we want a sleeper pick. So like a player that goes under the radar and is going to fall to you, or not fall to you, but we're a sleeper pick, someone that's under the radar, nobody really thinks about, that you can get high value, potentially like waiver wire guys depending on how big your league is. And then we want a guy that's going to fall like heavily that you might want to still invest in. And then we want to pick a player to avoid, because I think it's pretty easy to be like the players to pick. Like if you have the first pick, you want Jonathan Taylor. If you've got that's too easy. So let's do players to avoid. We'll do sleeper picks and we'll do fallers that you want to invest in.
Oh, yeah.
So do you guys have anyone you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
I have someone I want to go first.
Okay, so let's start with your sleeper pick.
Sleeper pick, I have Amon-Ra St. Brown from the Lions. He fell to me in our fantasy league on one of the later rounds, and I was very happy with it, especially because, I just saw a stat. It was like he, in 100 straight throws to him, he hasn't dropped one. So I just feel like he's going to have a great season this year. I think he was a rookie last year, and he exploded. So, he's coming back for year 2. And I think, love the fantasy pick I just got, but I think it's going to be a great fantasy pick for people who want to get him.
Dante, you got a sleeper?
Yeah, my sleeper that I believe will be great this year is Juju. He has Patrick Mahomes thrown to him better than Big Ben. Travis Kelce's there. He'll take a lot of attention away from him. And you saw how he did with AB being the second option. I feel like he'll do really good this year.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think that the Chiefs' wide receiver room is a little bit underrated in that sense, that they are going to have a lot of weapons in that wide receiver room. Adding MVS, who was to me one of my sleeper picks, because I do think he's going to do really well in Kansas City. However, I don't know how many targets he's going to get, because I don't know if he's going to be the 2 or the 3 guy with Hardman there. So should be interesting to see. But he was one of my potential ones. But then I've got 2. They're both Packers players because I think that the Packers, well, one, the Packers wide receiver core has gone pretty under the radar because they aren't very talented, but they do have Aaron Rodgers throwing it to them. So I think a guy like, for me, this is Alan Lazard is one of my sleeper picks because he's going to be the consensus starting wide receiver. He's going to be the consensus number 1 guy. And I already talked about this early in the podcast, but I said that if you took his stats, basically his yards per catch, his catch percentage, and you took it inflated to the amount of targets that Devontae Adams got last year from Aaron Rodgers, he's like a 1,400-yard receiver. I think he's an underrated guy to look for because he's going to be very solid. Another guy, because the Packers wide receiver core is so like full of question marks right now, A.J. Dillon, backup running back for the Packers, they said basically that he is going to get a lot of attention. I mean, whether it be they choose to slot Jamal Adams, or did I say Jamal Adams?
Jones.
Aaron Jones, sorry. I'm getting so out of there. If they decide to slot Aaron Jones and choose to throw the ball to him, they'll have Dillon in their back pocket to rush the ball with. They already came out and said that there's a chance that both Dillon and Aaron Jones could both be 50 reception running backs this year. So in a PPR league, that is huge. I think he's a bit of a sleeper. I think those 2 on the Packers are big sleepers for me. And let's move on. Let's do the faller. So a guy that's going to fall that you should invest in still. Do you guys have one? Or do you want me to go first?
I think me and Dante had the same one.
Okay.
We kinda
What's yours?
before. I had D-Hop because we kind of
DeAndre Hopkins.
And Dante got him in our fantasy league, which I was mad about because I was thinking about picking him before he picked him. But he's only out 6 games, so I feel like once you get him back, he's going to be a starting receiver in fantasy. And D-Hop always puts up great fantasy stats. So, I mean, I think that's a great guy to just think about on your roster.
Yeah, obviously I got D-Hop. I have another one. I'm going to go with James Robinson. Although he's coming off of an injury, I feel like they might send out ETN maybe to catch some on some drives, and then James Robinson is the running back there, but you're banking on him coming back from an injury. But I have enough faith in him to come back and not be the same, but like come very close to it.
I also thought DeAndre Hopkins was a great pick. I think people, heard about him being suspended and were like, all right, I'm going to avoid that. But then it comes out, it's like, it's less than half the season.
Yeah.
And then by week 7, you're like coasting with DeAndre Hopkins as like the number 1 option in Arizona. Another one of my followers was, I saw this recently, like people were picking like Odell because like he's not on a team yet, but as soon as he gets picked, like he's going to be like a guy that people look for. I'm going to add this guy. I think I'm going to add this guy to my sleeper pick instead of my faller pick because I don't know if he's going to fall in a lot of leagues, but I got him kind of low. I think Devontae Smith is going to have a stellar season next year. I think he's going to have a Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson type of exploding year. I got him pretty low, I think, in our draft. Like I picked him like
it was one of the later rounds.
It was one of the later rounds. Another faller that is interesting is he fell really hard in our league is Christian McCaffrey because he's so injury prone. I think people are hesitant to pick him. But if he stays healthy, he's like the consensus second best running back in the league or number 1 guy in fantasy.
I made a promise to myself that I would never pick him again because I picked him the past 2 years and he got hurt and my fantasy team was screwed from that.
I got him.
Dante kind of picked 7 in our league, which is still pretty like he fell. I mean, from being the number 2 guy and having a potential production like that. Yeah. But that's a guy that might fall in your league that you might want to invest in still.
Can I add one more?
Yeah.
I honestly think Devontae Parker is going to do really good in
I don't think he's going to
New
do
England.
it at all.
Who's catching balls over there?
Devontae Parker was a good receiver for the Dolphins, don't get me wrong. But
now he's got a better quarterback to him.
Funny. But he was never good at creating separation. And I just feel like Devontae Parker, I don't think he's going to have a blowout season with the Patriots because of that key reason of he's still not that good at creating separation. And I don't think Mac Jones is as good. I'm not saying he's bad, but I don't think he's as good as a lot of these other quarterbacks in throwing guys open and fitting those really tight windows in press coverage. And I think Mac does better when he has receivers on his team that can create that separation and get open.
He's going in like the 15th round. I think that's for a wide receiver one. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like it's a faller for me. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
it's a sleeper, but
Yeah.
All right. And do you guys have players to avoid?
I have one in particular.
I have two. So do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first real quick. I got Mike Gesicki as I would not pick as a tight end. Last year I had him and he did great, and he still is a good tight end, but with the new Dolphins offense they're running, he just does not fit. It's bummed me, my brother, my dad out because we love Mike Gesicki, but it's the Dolphins offense is just a lot more. We're going to run the ball a lot more because we got the new running backs. It'll be a lot more play action, and teams kind of knew that whenever Gesicki was on the field, it was going to be a pass no matter what because he cannot block at all. He's one of the worst blocking tight ends in the NFL, and I feel like in this Dolphins new system, we need tight ends that can block, so it's not obvious that we're going to throw the ball every time he gets on the field. So I think his production is going to go down a lot from last year. So, I mean, I wouldn't be looking at him as a tight end pick on your fantasy team.
Dante.
I have two. So the first one, I'm going to go with Gabriel Davis.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's getting drafted way too high. I mean, he has still Stephon Diggs there. He has Jamison Crowder. I
forgot they got Jameson
Yeah.
Crowder.
I heard Isaiah McKenzie is like doing wonders in training camp. So I feel like he's going way too high.
I agree with that. I feel like the couple games towards the very end of the season that Gabriel Davis had, like he had that like 4 touchdown game.
Well, yeah, and he did amazing in the playoffs.
I think that put a lot of hype on him though. Like in the regular season, he wasn't putting up huge numbers. So I mean, I totally agree with that. People were hyping up him too much, and I almost made the mistake because I put him on a queue, and then I was like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with that.
So I've got two guys. One, I think he's just getting drafted too early. I wouldn't say avoid him. I would avoid him kind of early, though, is Marquise Brown for the same reason that people are picking DeAndre Hopkins. As soon as Hopkins comes back, he's going to be the consensus number one guy on that team. Yeah. And you basically just drafted your wide receiver one, who's going to be a wide receiver two after 6 games. So to me, I think that one's going to be tough. He's going to be in a new system with a new quarterback throwing to him. So I wouldn't draft him that early. Granted, he's not going to be a bad pick. So I wouldn't necessarily like write him off as a bad pick, but I would avoid him in the earlier rounds.
Yeah.
The other guy I would pick is, well, one, any wide receiver 2 on a team with a bad quarterback is not a good pick, at least early on. And that's why for me, and I fell victim to this because I was like, it's too good of a thing to pass up. I drafted Tyler Lockett, which I think is a huge guy that you need to avoid in the early rounds. Just because he's the wide receiver, despite how talented he is, he's the wide receiver 2 on a team with, right now, their starting quarterback's Geno Smith and no offensive line.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a recipe for disaster. I think even though Tyler Lockett is a potential wide receiver 1 on a couple teams in the NFL, he is not going to do the production he did last year with Russell Wilson by any means. And I think that's a player you need to avoid in the earlier rounds. So that's going to kind of wrap it up for us in the fantasy football. Do you guys have anyone you want to add? Anyone you think is going to break out? Anyone you're excited to be on your team?
I'm excited I got Cam Akers as my running back too on my team. I think him coming off an injury, I think with the Rams system, I think he's gonna be a great fantasy running back for me.
I'm excited that I got the Packers defense. The Packers defense
Screw you.
is going to be so incredible this year. They are a team that I'm excited to watch defensively because their secondary is going to be fantastic, and then they're just continuing to work on their defensive line, and their backs and their middle linebackers are getting better. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch Packers defense.
Excited to watch George Pickens. I picked him late in the draft.
That'll be interesting. If he does well, do you think he's going to be consensus wide receiver 2, 3?
I saw on Twitter that he was getting more snaps than Claypool, but I mean it's preseason, so
Mhm.
you're not gonna play Claypool.
Yeah.
Like Pickens is gonna get more snaps, but I think he has the ability to jump in that wide receiver 2 place and go crazy. Honestly,
I got Traylon Burks kind of low, and I'm
Mm.
excited for that because Tennessee's wide receiver room is completely flipped upside down.
Yeah.
And Traylon Burks is going to be a guy with a lot of targets as a rookie. So I got him pretty late. I'm very excited to have him on my team as well. So let's go into hot takes. Do either of you want to go first?
I'll go first. Yeah.
okay.
It's very hot, very hot.
Let's hear it.
Something about
I'm gonna steal my guy Dan Orlovsky's hot take, and I think especially with just seeing the way Tua played with some of these starters, and getting the full offensive playbook out that Mike McDaniel has set, I think Dolphins could be a favorite in the AFC. I think
AFC
favorite.
or AFC East?
AFC East winning the division. And
You think
go
they're
far
a favorite in the
playoffs.
AFC East or a favorite in the AFC?
But kind of both. Like I think AFC East.
That's
I
interesting.
think they have a favorite to win that division, and I think in the playoffs, I think maybe even like AFC Championship. I just feel like Tua's gonna. I mean, I talk to you guys about this all the time. I think Tua's gonna thrive in this offense with these new weapons, and I have so much high hopes for Mike McDaniel in this offense. I just think he's a genius on the offensive playbook. So I think when he really brings that out, I think we're gonna be a tough team to match up against. So that's my hot
I
take.
think
for
that's
today.
a pretty hot take. Dante, you got one?
You got one for football? Because I'm going to steer away from the NFL.
Well, I've
so-
got one for football. I kind of already mentioned it earlier. I think Devontae Smith is going to have a Justin Jefferson type breakout year. I think he's going to be very incredible to watch. And then I have another one for my football fans and my Premier League fans. JJ, this one's for you, but I think this is Arsenal's season. I think they look very good. I mean, they're 4 games in, granted, so you have to take everything with a grain of salt. But still, they look very, very solid. I mean, they've got Jesus is playing great. Saka's playing fantastic. Those 2 up front are already just them by themselves are playing great. They're playing very well as a team. They look really good in their last 2. I mean, they had like the comeback win down like 1-0 to Fulham. And now they're 4-0 in the Prem, and they're first. So I think that this will be the year to watch for Arsenal. And I hope I'm not jinxing them early because they've had a history of not having some tough time towards the end. But I think that this is Arsenal's year in the Premier League, and that's my hot take.
Yeah, I'm going to steer away from football and basketball and soccer. I'm going to go to the NHL. I know it's a while away, but I really like what the Penguins did in the offseason. They bolstered their D-line up and brought back Malkin, brought back Letang, brought back key parts. I think they have the potential to go to the Stanley Cup final.
And who's that?
Pittsburgh Penguins.
I got no comment. I have no clue who any of those guys are.
And it sounds biased, but like Crosby has only a couple years left. Malkin does. Chris
So it's
Letang
like now
does.
or never for you guys.
So they still got to make some moves on the defense side because they have too much. But
I don't know how you're going to win the Metro with Johnny Hockey in Columbus, though.
They might be the easiest opponent in the Metro.
It should be fun. It'll be fun to watch hockey next year because I'm actually my goal is to get more and more into hockey. I mean, you can't be. I don't know how I'm from Columbus and somehow know the least about hockey and a little bit of soccer, and that's our only 2 professional teams there. So, I think those are 2 things that I'm gonna get better at. And I got NHL 22, so I'm gonna in 3 business days gonna beat Dante, and I'll live stream it for everyone
You wish.
on Cork It. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll live stream it, and I'll
Okay.
take you down.
All
Or
right,
we'll film it or
see.
do something about it.
We'll see.
All right. Well, we want to thank you guys for listening. Like I said, things are going to be a little different from here because we don't have JJ. We don't have Dominic. So if you notice, there's a 4th spot here open. So we're going to have some guests on every once in a while. We also still want to continue to react to your hot takes. Send us in hot takes. Let us react to them. I think that's a fun segment. We had so much fun reacting to Mark's last week. If you got a hot take about anything, hot opinion, anything, send it into us. We'll react to it live here. We'll shout you out. We'll put your Instagram or anything down below. It'll be a lot of fun. You guys got anything to add?
I think we're all good.
All right, so thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, follow us on social media. It'll be down below. And as JJ would say,
Book it.
book it. See you guys next week.
See you.